Good evening. It's Wednesday, December 21st, 2011, and there are a couple of things we're going to talk about tonight. The first is I would be remiss if I didn't go back to this tax cut bill and what happened yesterday. Um, Earlier the Rules Committee had a big fight, as they usually do. They make entertaining television, but it's sort of the reduction of what we see between Republicans and Democrats in Congress now. And remember, they have very little popularity in the United States. I see more and more comments online with the suggestion that we throw out all of the incumbents. And I've mentioned this, I think, once before, but not a bad idea. We could start over. And I think you get to the law of diminishing returns with the Congress that we have now, is that you will get to a point where anything that you bring in is going to be better than what you have now. But I missed a few things about this tax bill yesterday. It appeared that the Republicans were, especially John Boehner, and in the House, were at fault in all of this and complicit between Senator McConnell and John Boehner. The inference was made in the Rules Committee that they had engineered this failure. Well, I don't think that's all there is to it, because as I thought about it over the last day, I think that there's actually something noble going on here, but it's being spun very badly. And this is what I mean. The two houses of Congress, the Senate and the House, are supposed to be co-equal. And right now we have sort of an imbalance because we have a Democratic administration in the executive branch, of course, and then we have a Democratic majority in the Senate and a Republican majority in the House. Well, there's another finger to be pointed here, and that's at Harry Reid. Because as I thought about it some more, what happened was the Senate, as we looked at the Senate and the House versions of this, the House version was much better. The Senate voted on this weak and band-aid of a bill, of their version of it, and then they fled for the holidays. And I think that was done with some thought of doing that ahead of time. And when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, there was a lot of heavy-handedness there. Well, she's gone now, but we haven't got rid of her partner in crime, Senator Harry Reid. A lot of heavy-handedness being practiced in the Senate, too. My thought is that the Senate will probably go Republican in the next election. I think certainly the executive branch will. The presidency will go Republican, and I think the House will remain Republican. That'll be very interesting. We'll see what happens. But as I go through this, so Harry Reid wanted to get his way, so they passed this weak excuse for a tax cut bill, and then they flee for the hills. The Republicans in the Senate can't do anything about it because they're in the minority. So John Boehner, in the House version, by the way, is much better if you read both of them. It could be said that he's standing on principle right now, that they have a better version, that the Senate is at fault for not sticking around until both versions of these bills could go to conference, could be resolved with each other, and then the American people may benefit with a good version of this bill, or at least as good a version as we're going to get. But that didn't happen. And the Republicans are taking a lot of heat for it in the House. They're taking the blame for being on the wrong side of a tax cut bill. Well, we'll see how this plays out, but I don't think we're all fooled. I think I think the Senate certainly should have stayed around. And I think that'll probably come out in the next day or so, because you're starting to see a couple of comments that way in the press. But again, there are a lot of Ivy League people and a lot of degreed people and doctors and lawyers on Capitol Hill, and they just have what they need are some advertising people. I think they need some good PR people, because what happened this morning, did they really think that by cutting off C-SPAN's cameras that no one was going to notice that? It had, of course, the exact opposite result. It ended up on the evening news. It's all over the internet. In fact, a couple of the social news sites that I get news from and read every day, it was at the very top. That was a bad move. That was a bad move. It was a pro forma session, because I think legally neither of the houses of Congress can be out of session more than 3 days without the permission of the other, or something like that. And so I don't think they really intended to conduct any business this morning, but the Democrats were ready to rub the Republicans' noses in this tax cut bill. And they started to do that, and it just made the Republicans look bad again. But the Democrats have done the same thing. In the past, it was in 2008, they actually they left, turned the cameras off, turned the lights out, and turned the microphones off. The microphones were turned back on and then went off again. So it's not something that only the Republicans are at fault for. That both sides have done it. And once again, what do you have there? Probably not the best results we could hope for from our elected representatives. The last thing I want to comment on here in the Christmas season, it's not the holiday season, it's the Christmas season, or at least it used to be. As everyone else, there's Christmas shopping to be done. And I don't want to sound like a whiner, but the Christmas music playing in the stores just doesn't go for me. Not in the big stores. Maybe in a little boutique shop or something where you can smell the mulberries and that in the spiced apple, what have you, in the background, maybe so. But when you go into Walmart, it gave me a headache to listen to it. And they were playing it loud too. To their credit, I went into a couple of other national chains today that were not playing Christmas music. And by the way, the Christmas music, I don't know where Walmart gets its music from, but don't make rap songs out of traditional Christmas carols. It just it sounds commercial, and it really I think sets a lot of people's teeth on edge. So I went into Lowe's today, the lumber, the hardware big store. They were playing hip hop in Lowe's, and then I went in Barnes and Nobles, and I don't want to give them a plug, but I always forget that that's a good place to shop for Christmas, at least for the people that I have to shop for. And they had very tasteful music in the background, and it was a little oasis today in all of the traffic and everyone trying to do things at the last minute. But with all of that, hey, maybe I don't blame the Senate for heading for the hills. I know they had Christmas shopping to do, but let's get the people's business done. I'm still at work this week. You should be too. So to clarify, what this means is that Speaker Boehner was standing up and saying that both houses are co-equal, and it was wrong for the Senate. Actually, it was a chicken move for the Senate to pass their version of this and then leave town. And I'll have to tell you, I go along with this because the House is really, the House appropriates money. The Senate does not. And the House has always been considered really the people's house. That's they represent constituencies of each member of between 600,000 and 700,000 people, whereas the Senate has 2 senators for a state. So if you've got a state the size of Texas with 15, 20 million people in it, I have no idea, I'm taking a guess, you've got 1 senator basically looking after 10 million people. So the House of Representatives closer to the people, and I think Boehner was sticking up for that. He just did it badly, and I'll tell you why. I'm a relatively educated person. I think at least as well educated as the mean or the median in the U.S. And it took me a day of thinking about this to figure out what was happening. So once again, they need better PR people to school them, to teach them how to present what they're doing to the public, if they're going to, if they want to at least make any headway in this regard, because they handled it very badly. I hope that you have a good holiday, and we'll see you next time.